Moviesucktastic is a podcast about bad movies and the people that love them. But it's more than just a podcast. It's also an online presence. If you want more about Moviesucktastic or want to become a part of Moviesucktastic, you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter at Moviesucktastic. You can find our blog at boothreviews.blogspot.com, or if you want to give your own reviews that we might use on the show, you can go to reviews.moviesucktastic.com and check out our own little lunch.com community for Moviesucktastic. Check us out and become a part of the show, because the only thing more fun than a bad movie is sharing it.
A Boy and His Dog, rated R, from LQ Jeff.
You are listening to Moviesucktastic.
Dude. Whoa, dude, no! Oh!
Oh, dude, whoa!
Oh my, we're still alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially me down here in Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Real quick, before we start the show, this is Moviesucktastic, by the way. We talk about movies a lot, but I'm on our YouTube page and I don't see anything streaming.
What?
Yeah, I don't.
Oh, for Christ's sakes.
Not to hold everybody up.
What'd you do?
What did I do?
Yeah, what'd you do?
I checked up. What did you do?
I don't know what I did.
All right, well, we're not going live on YouTube right now, but whatever.
We're supposed to be. I fixed it.
If I'll keep checking while we're recording. Anyway, welcome to Moviesucktastic. Not those of you on YouTube, of course, but
should have
other
texted
people
me
watching.
during the opening.
Those in the future. I was still looking. I thought it was just a delay. This is Moviesucktastic. We've been out for a couple weeks, but now we're back, and now we're going to review. Or am I jumping the gun, Joey?
What?
This is Joey.
Yeah.
That was Joey.
Yep.
Say hi, Joey.
Hi.
And I'm Scott, and we're here to review movies.
That's us.
One movie in particular today. Oh boy, this dog.
Oh, nice. I like that.
Yeah, I'm working on this stuff. 1970. What are we in now? 76?
75.
75. That's right. We're not 76 yet.
Yeah.
Or are we? But yeah, so we are currently marching slowly through the years, and we're on 76. And Joey challenged this to me.
I did.
And why did you do that, Joey?
I've never seen this film,
Okay.
and I've always wanted to actually watch this, and I've never gotten around to it. So I selfishly just kind of, I don't know, challenged it to you so I could watch it.
Well, I saw it once back in the 80s, and back then, getting a movie like this wasn't through, commercial means. So I had like a grainy copy of it.
Sure.
And I remember the film being, well, of course, we're watching 1080p copies here, but I remember it being grainy and just ugly. And that's all I remembered from it much. I remembered bits and pieces of it from way back then. I'm familiar with the Harlan Ellison short story and him. So it was a nice refresher for me too. I hadn't seen it in so long. I couldn't have really quoted you much from it. And having reread the short story novella as well recently before you challenged it to me, really gave me some perspective on it.
Yeah, and you know what? I went into this blind. I knew nothing about it. I just knew it was post-apocalyptic, and that was it. I didn't know that the dog could talk to him telepathically. I knew none of that. And what I actually liked, I'll figure out the streaming shit later. What I actually did like is I did like the interaction between him and the dog, and it did feel, because I did not get a chance to read the novella that you
You're
sent me.
not missing much.
No, I know, but I get the feeling that what I was seeing on screen was probably indicative of what you, for the most part, read.
It's pretty close, and there's a couple of differences that are worth pointing out that I'll bring up later on. But I don't want to get into that now.
Okay. Yeah,
But
it definitely felt like I was watching, or at least the dialogue. It felt like it came out of the book.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things about this film to like, especially in retrospect. I think the voice performance of the dog, which apparently was it was one of the dogs that they used for the Brady Bunch.
Was it really?
Yeah, I did my research, and he wasn't even credited in this film.
No kidding.
Yeah.
There's a scene in the film where there's two dogs fighting, which, I'm sure Hollywood did not give a shit about the two animals, because a lot of times they'll say, hey, these two dogs are fighting, but they're really playing. They'll do it in slow motion. These two dogs look like they were really fucking going at it.
This was the 70s. They weren't even protecting the actors. What are you talking about?
That's what I'm getting at. I'm like, it's a different time.
Definitely. Oh, the reason I'm wearing the headset today
Yeah.
is because one of my kittens chewed through the wire to my speakers.
Oh, fantastic.
So I couldn't use my earbuds in the jack. Just want to explain why I got the cans on.
Yeah, we have a new cat. We have a new cat who hasn't done anything like that yet, but there's always time.
With the headset on, I feel like it should be like playing Grand Theft Auto and cracking jokes about it.
Yeah.
Like the Twitch feed. I'm saying this is more.
I get what you're saying.
All right.
You know what's funny? The actor that did the voice for the dog was what's something McIntyre? Let's see, what was his name? Tim McIntyre. And I couldn't help. You ever see the video that they have going around, the Boston Robotics video, where there's this robot and they, like, it's picking up a box and then the guy knocks the box out of it and then it picks it up again, and they'll go and they'll kick the robot over and it'll pick itself back up and start walking. You've never seen this video?
No.
It's fucking hilarious because the voiceover, it was done comedically. Boston Robotics, I think it's Boston Robotics, they released this video saying, hey, we're creating these robots that are, that can do all these crazy things. And somebody did a voiceover for it. And the guy that does the voiceover for the robot sounds exactly like the dog in this movie. And I could not stop thinking about it. I'll send you the video after the show. It's actually quite good.
I'll be watching my inbox.
There you go. So the film opens up with Don Johnson's character, Vic.
Actually, it opens up to the opening credits with a montage of nuclear explosions, so you get the idea.
Yeah. It looks like they filmed this, if I had to guess, somewhere out in the desert. Nevada, Arizona,
There's a rainforest,
New Mexico.
The Ozarks.
As a matter of fact, I'll take a look at their filming locations, and I haven't done that yet, so I'm sure that's, where it was. Alternate versions. It says there's an alternate version? No way.
Yeah, there's some edits.
Oh. I don't find that to be...
Well, when you talk about, like, international distribution.
Yeah. Oh, it's filmed entirely in California.
Yeah, I can see California looking like that. Well, the approach now, not to jump into the literary angle of it right away, but in the book, it's primarily they're living in the wreckage of the last civilization. So,
which is
when they go
World War IV.
Correct. World War III was just a traditional war.
Yeah, and World War IV, I think they go through. They make it known that it lasted like 4 or 5 days.
Right. Well, yeah, because nuclear war.
Yes.
Just let's underline that several times. If anybody didn't understand that nuclear war was not a slow plotting process.
Because what? Growing up,
this is the 70s.
With us growing up as kids, and even in the 70s, we were always told that World War III would be a nuclear war.
And would happen soon.
Yeah.
And you should prepare. Yeah. No, we lived under the mushroom cloud.
Oh, of
definitely.
Course. I mean, like with the Cold War in the 80s, we were, kids today, they go through drills, active shooter drills and whatnot, which is disgusting. Yeah. We were going through like nuclear war, like hide under your desk or getting a door jam kind of drills.
Yeah, and I've always held that up as see my scarred childhood. And then I kind of realized later in life, that, I'm holding up the fear of like a fictional war that hasn't happened as my childhood scarring. And I'm like a generation after people that actually lived through a real war.
Right.
And had actual, legitimate fears of things that were happening around them. And I'm like, oh, but this fictional thing that scared me, come on.
And then
just because it could possibly happen doesn't make it less fictional. Just like in this film and in the novel, in the novella, JFK either survived the assassination or wasn't assassinated. I guess what goes hand in hand. And I think he went on for 3 terms.
I think it was more than that, actually. If I remember the opening titles, you might be right with 3, but it was definitely
more than should be.
More than allowed.
Yeah. More than Trump thought he was going to get.
Let's not go there.
That was actually neither positive nor negative.
I guess that's true.
You could air that on any.
It's just a factual statement.
Yeah, pretty much. I think both sides would agree with that.
I think so.
I remain neutral.
There you go. It's just like Switzerland.
I'm sick of the Swiss.
So the film opens up with that, and then it does open up into the wasteland.
So just to cap what I was saying, they're living in the movie scene in the film, in the book, in the novella, it's actually a real movie theater like that survived the bombing in the ruins of the city. So, but this film, since we're talking about 70s with low budget, they decided to say that everything just was buried under like 10 feet of dirt from the explosions.
Yeah, they did mention that.
Well, they don't mention it. The film shows you.
Yeah, it just shows you it's all dirty and grimy, and it's just.
And that's one thing I like about the film is that while it on the surface it seems very expositional, but they really don't explain too much. They have to explain the history. They have that through the dog teaching Don Johnson history, which I believe happened in real life too. And but they really don't try to explain a lot of things. It's just there, and you're supposed to pick it up or kind of glean from it.
Well, like Vic's character, I don't think they mention it, but I think it's mentioned in the novella that he's uneducated, and that the dog is very intelligent and educated, and that's why
teaching him.
And exactly,
right.
And he's teaching him all these things, and he's You know, the thing is, they need each other to survive. They make that known. Vic really likes to, he likes sex, and the dog has this knack for sniffing out women.
Let's circle back to that whole he likes sex thing, because that's an important part of this film.
He rapes women.
He's a big rapey McRaperson, yes.
Yes, he is.
That's going to come into play at the end, near the end of our discussion. I have something about that.
Okay.
He didn't really rape anybody. It's more just about...
No, they don't show that in the film at all, but it is alluded to because... not even alluded to. I think he actually goes along the lines. He goes, I haven't had sex in 3 weeks. And then they kind of have a going back and forth where he just talks about taking women, you know, as he just takes them. So obviously he's raping them. You just have to decipher what he's saying, and it's not that hard. And
in the novella, there's no skirting around that, because I have, raping. Rape comes up. It's called rape. There's no allusions to it. It's just rape, rapey, rape,
rapey, rape.
Find me my next rape victim. That is a line from.
Is it really?
No, not literally. No. Now I'm off the cuff, but it's pretty much that.
Well, he does in the film. He does say, "I haven't had sex in 3 weeks. You better find me a woman soon." Like he goes through those kind of emotions when he's talking to Blood, which is the name of the dog, which is a weird name for a dog, but that's the dog's name.
Yeah.
Blood.
Well, he's a war dog.
He is a war dog.
Yeah. So war horse.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had a flashback.
Yeah, he just had to do it.
Well, I keep stepping on you. We meet the boy and the dog, and they're in the wasteland, and they're surviving.
Right, and the movie's only 90 minutes.
Right. So while our hero is demanding the dog find him his next rape victim, they stumble upon a young woman.
They stumble upon a young woman, and they follow this I guess this crew or crowd of people, because the dog has sensed that there is a woman among them. And they're at
the movie theater. He senses her at
the
movie theater.
I'm talking about... Oh, I thought you were talking about the scene before where he finds the mutilated woman.
Oh, that's just... I mean, that's...
Because they're following them, because, the dog could sniff it out.
You're right. It's very important that we underline the fact that our hero at one point finds a woman that was raped and murdered, and his verbal complaint is, they didn't have to do that. She would have been good for 4 or 5 more times.
Exactly. He said, this is wasteful. It's like, I don't understand why they had to do that.
And again, that's from the novel. And this is going to come up later.
Okay. So, but then you're right. They end up going to, it's like an outdoor, like drive-in type scenario.
Joey, this is the post-apocalypse. Everything's outdoor.
Everything's outdoors. So they go, and basically they're watching stag films. That is the entertainment for the evening, our stag movies.
See, in the book, at least, they showed 2 real, although fake, because it's an alternate universe at that point, films. And then the third feature was the stag film.
Oh, that's all they were watching in this.
Yeah, which I guess, maybe they couldn't show all 3 features. I mean, that'd be a long movie. So I guess they had to pick one.
It could be cut and edited a certain way where you can get the notion that they've watched more than one thing.
It's a quibble, but it's an understandable quibble.
Of course. I mean,
continue.
That scene goes on for 15 minutes. No, it can go on for a couple. But anyway, you're right. So they're watching these films, and the dog, Blood, he's like, there is a woman here. And Vic is basically saying, well, where? And he points her out. And she's dressed like a boy. And, the hair's tied up, the hat.
To avoid the raping.
To avoid the raping, of course. So Vic and Blood proceed to follow her to where you get to see her get undressed. That's where the film really earns its R rating at that moment. That's the first time it really does. And, well, actually, before that, isn't there a scene where there's a group of people and Vic and Blood steal food from them?
Yeah.
Yeah, and and what that scene really shows is how savage people are in this post-apocalyptic future.
It's a rough world.
It's a mad, 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 mad world. So before that scene, they show that, and the one leader, he's not even mad that Vic steals the food. He's just kind of almost proud of it.
I wanted to see his movie.
Yeah.
That's a guy. He's like, aha, go kid, go. Oh, my guitarist escaped. Dude, the fact that he kept the guitarist as a slave. You know, he had his radio.
He had it. He had to have something. I don't know.
There was something about that guy. I wanted to know more.
Yeah, right.
Maybe Vic will return.
He beats one of his slaves to death because they aren't digging fast enough, or he gets angry at one of them, and he just pounds him. And then they show that person's dead body, like all bloody. That was the one that Vic shot. Well, if he shot him first, he definitely beat somebody a few times.
I think it's bad continuity was the cause of that confusion.
Is that what it was?
Yeah. I saw what you're talking about, but I think you're confused because of the continuity.
Oh, okay. So anyway, he goes and he finds the girl, confronts her. It pretty much is ready to do the raping. And
can I say a quick thing that one of the things I was impressed by with this film was the location of this the whole gunfight to protect the rape victim. When he climbs down and they show that it's a school stadium, the fact that they even just bothered to go through the trouble of having it shown that with the remnants, with the debris, was that this high school stadium was used as a shelter for people during the war.
Oh, sure, like a kind of
with all the beds out and like the little hospital sign up, and attention to detail like that in a film that was just like, all right, no buildings. It really spoke to something. There's like it showed that they cared. That tableau impressed me. I just had to say that.
I mean, I think a film like this could get the remake treatment and possibly be. Oh, they're doing it?
It's in process, but it's one of those shitty little side independent companies. So I don't think anything's going to really happen.
Do we know who's doing it?
Nobody. Guy does low independent, like direct to streaming stuff.
Oh no. Oh.
Yeah, it's all, but there's no detail. So I think they just own the copyright somehow. I didn't look into it.
Okay. I'm just looking it up real quick, see if it's kind of. Oh wow, this article's from 11 years ago.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
Jesus Christ. Now, wait a minute. There's something that came out in 2018 called A Boy and His Dog.
It was the re-release of the movie. It's like a documentary about it or something.
Oh, it's a 3-minute short. I don't even know why. Whatever.
Or that.
Doesn't matter.
Something like that.
Okay.
There's also one that came out for the 20th anniversary that was like a mini doc. When you search for just that title, a lot of stuff comes up.
Okay. So anyway, they realize that they've been followed, and they have to try and get themselves out of there. But before that happens, mutually, he doesn't rape her. She's consensual about it, and apparently they have sex. So they actually show the dog, and he's sitting on a mattress, and below them are the two of them. You don't see it having sex, and you just see several times that the mattress going up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down.
And nice, very, very subtle. Well, I don't know about how subtle it was, but it was a nice transition of time.
Right.
I mean, it worked. The dog is cute and funny, you know.
I liked the dog, and I liked Tim McIntyre's narration. I really liked it.
Yeah, but let's be fair too. I just want to underline that it was consensual, but not by design.
No. His intention was
not,
to rape her probably several times.
It was unintentionally consensual.
Right. Yup.
But that's gonna be my volume 3 of my memoirs are going to be called that.
Oh, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So they without getting into detail because it's unnecessary, they do escape. They get out. But she talks to him about going back to where she is from, to her people,
right,
which are, she keeps saying is, underground. And he keeps saying that he doesn't want to do that at all.
Right.
So then she does leave, and Vic wants to follow her.
Right.
So
Because he values his freedom to rape as he pleases.
of course. Well,
Yeah.
because
No, I mean, but yeah, he's a young guy. He wants his freedom. He wants to be able to do what he wants to do. And that comes into play there.
right. So he talks to Blood about it, and Blood basically tells him not to follow her. It's like, don't bother. It's like, what are you doing? Let's just get back to what we do. And Vic is just like, nah, kind of following his dick a little bit at that point.
But he doesn't get the chance because then she knocks him over the head and escapes.
Right.
Because that's playing hard to get.
So Vic goes and follows her. And basically leaves Blood behind and says he promises to return. So just fast forward.
You have to underline that Blood has been injured at this point during that fight.
Yeah, well, it was the dog fight that I had mentioned earlier. He's like he's got a broken leg and he's all bloody, and he's actually pretty messed up. So, and then there's dialogue that goes back and forth, mostly on Blood's end, to Vic's character saying, listen, I'm not as young as I used to be. I need you to survive. You need me to survive. And if anything happened to you and you die, I'm going to be sad about it. Like they go and they deliver that dialogue. Blood would be he would be much like, if you really reverse it, when a person loses an animal or a pet, they would be sad. He's just actually saying the same things, but from his end.
No.
So,
all right. Yeah, but I mean.
Well, I'm just saying because the animal side, obviously, you don't hear. Right. An animal loves you as much as you love the animal in most instances. So
and here's a sentence for you.
Yeah.
It's an important character arc for the dog. Because we spend most of the film where he talks down to Vic.
He calls him Albert for whatever reason. Is that explained in the novella?
It's not.
Okay.
It is, but it still isn't. And I'll explain it when we start talking about Harlan Ellison.
Okay. Does it have anything to do with Albert Einstein? Is he making fun of him because he's uneducated? No. Okay.
No. I wish it was that simple.
Okay. All right.
But no, it is because so he's always talking down to him and pretty much telling him how useless he is without him. And this is where he actually admits, I'm the one that's dependent on you. It's more said than shown, but it's a very dramatic scene and you actually feel something.
Yeah.
And then Don Johnson goes into the big dark below.
He does, and he goes after the girl. And when he gets
there's so many strange sentences in just talking about this film.
Yeah. So when he finally does get down there, he sees and realizes that there's like this underground society. I think they're called the Committee or something like that. Does that sound correct?
The Community.
The
Community.
Okay, there you go. And they dress in whiteface. Like they have everything but the British like judges' hair and curls and things like that. Like I don't understand why they paint their faces white and they do kind of like the makeup even on the men.
All right. I'll give you a bit. In the novel, they were really just like hicks. Okay. They just wore overalls and flannel and they were hayseeds and they had farms and all that. And what TJ, LQ Jones, who wrote the screenplay, instead of Harlan Ellison, and we'll talk about that. I think what he wanted to do is the whole point of the underground is supposed to be just mundane existence, like in comparison to the young rebels' wild life. This is just you sit on the porch and we talk and tell stories. That's it. So what I think he tried to do was paint them as less human. And by doing so they're so made up to be a part of society that they're actually less human because of it.
Okay.
So I think it's a metaphor creeping into the visuals, which is not unacceptable for sci-fi.
No, definitely not.
And so I think it's why even like it's supposed to be just like a rural community, but they make it very plastic looking with the gray, and the graveyard is a nice foreshadowing too when he first goes down It's like, yeah, that's a lot of bodies. What's going on? I mean, even though you'd see that in a normal society, it does, again, the plastic look of it. And so I think that's why.
Okay.
I mean, and that makes even more sense when the most human-looking one among them turns out to be the robot.
Yeah, right? Jesus. Yeah, the robot.
I forget what they called him. I have
it.
Look.
It's
Michael? Yeah, it was Michael.
Was it Michael?
Yeah, it was Michael.
It was Michael.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and he was like a killing machine.
Now, in the novella, the Michael character, technically the person that took John Johnson around, was a giant box with tentacles coming out of it. So, good call.
A little bit of an upgrade.
Yeah, that's like we dodged the Doctor Who bullet there.
Yeah, right. And we forgot to mention Jason Robards is in this film. He's part of this community. Yeah. He's one of the leaders. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting to always see Jason Robards in anything, because you just kind of forget how good of an actor he is. Like when he was in what was he in? Once Upon a Time in the West. One of my favorites with him in it, and he just has that kind of dry, somber delivery for his acting, and it's no different in this film. He does it the same way.
I remember more from stuff like Something Wicked This Way Comes. Speaking of science fiction writers,
yes, 83, I think that one was.
I'm not challenging you on that.
I think it was 83.
Yeah. So what happens is you find out that Quilla June Holmes actually lured. And now in the film, they kind of make a point that like he was actually the one they were trying to lure down, which makes no sense at all. I think it was done more for visuals than anything else with the socked feet.
Yeah,
I think it was supposed to be a cue to you that not everything's as it seems, and maybe they needed that to kind of deflect from the whole rapey thing. So I'll give them that. In the novella, she was just trying to lure any man, but they lure him down there apparently because locked down with a limited and dwindling population, they become sterile after so many generations, and they need new blood, and so he's down there to populate.
Yes. Yeah, they wanted to use him for that. And yes, Something Wicked This Way did come out in 1983.
Duh, you're the number guy.
I try.
That's why I didn't even question you. I was like, okay.
Well, I questioned myself. I was pretty sure, but I needed to look it up anyway. Mm-hmm. So Quilla basically, she asks him.
By the way,
because they sentence her to what's
stupid
called.
Name.
Yes, it is. They sentence her to what's called the farm.
Right. So whenever they sentence somebody to death, they fake a farm accident.
Right.
And so they call it sending them to the farm.
Right. So she asks Vic to kill like the three main community leaders so that she can not be sentenced to death or go to the farm.
Right.
And
now
he helps her out.
Okay. Another little thing.
Yeah.
In the book, I'm not sure if they actually say it here or imply it in the film. I didn't really catch it. They might have kind of implied it with Robards, but I don't think they did enough of it. But one of them is supposed to be her father. In the book, it was. In the book, one of the main guys involved there, one of those three guys, was her father. In this, they leave it open.
I kind of get the feeling, if I had to make a prediction, it would probably be Robards, because he's the one that actually sentences her to the farm.
Right. So that should have more.
It should right. If it has more meaning if the person sentencing you away is your blood.
And we'll talk a little more about that later on.
Okay.
Once we get to Harlan Ellison, I got a prepared thing.
Oh, okay.
Not prepared, but I know.
Well,
what
we're
I
almost
say.
we're almost there. We're almost near the end of this film.
Well, let's point out the fact that they announced to Don Johnson that you are going to help us repopulate, and he's like, "Oh, you want me to knock your broads up? Everybody, you first, get in line." Great, it played great with me. I actually laughed.
Yeah.
And And then they all laugh and they reveal that what they actually want to do is hook him up to a milking machine and suck him dry of semen and then artificially inseminate all the girls. But just to keep it legit, he has to marry them all before they kill him.
Right.
So while they're sucking semen out of him, it's a great visual. As far as I think it's one of the things that sets the film. It's one of the memorable parts of the film. Now that I remember it again.
And then they clean him first.
The bath scene is just.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was about.
Well.
At all. I reserve any comment about that. The whole thing was a fever dream.
Yeah, well, probably maybe.
It worked at what it was supposed to do, was make the introduction to the community jarring and uncomfortable.
Right.
You did it.
You did it. So he helps her escape, does what he needs to do as far as the people.
Oh.
Michael or Mike. It was Michael, right?
Michael.
You find out he's an android.
Mm-hmm. I was leaning that way.
Yeah. You could just tell because of not speaking and just like the emotionless face, and
even before Don Johnson started shooting him, I was tipping that way.
Yeah. So they do make it out of there. They make it back to the surface, where they find Blood, the dog, starving to death and still really messed up. And Quilla pleads with Vic to just leave Blood. He's a goner. Let's get out of here. And you could see they did. You could see they did a good job with showing the thought process of Vic's character. Especially when she tells him that she loves him, you could see in that scene that he's going to go with the dog. He needs the dog more than he needs her.
You sense the conflict, yeah.
Of course,
it's readily there.
And then, it fades to the next scene, or it fades on her actually, and then it fades on her to a roaring fire with. You just hear dialogue between Vic and Blood going back and forth, but you don't hear her. So you become quite aware that Don Johnson. We're giving this away, right? Spoiler alert and all this stuff.
It's from the 70s. If you're listening this far, you should know better.
Yeah. So spoiler alert.
I apologize.
You fast forward a minute or two if you're listening to this.
No, we're coming back to it. It's a big part of my conversation. We're ruining it.
We're ruining it. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Never mind. Never mind. Scott wants to ruin it.
I just don't want to lie to anybody. I don't want to fast forward 3 minutes and I say it twice in like 10 seconds.
Okay. So you don't see it. It doesn't happen on camera, but because you don't hear from her and you hear the dialogue between Vic and Blood that Vic has killed Quilla and is feeding her to the dog.
Killed her and cooked her.
Exactly.
Yeah, because we see the bonfire.
Yep.
It slowly pulls back from the bonfire. There are tatters of white cloth, which is obviously her dress, scattered around. Blood is bandaged up in the scraps from her white dress, and the two of them alone are walking off into the sunset while they're talking.
Correct. She is nowhere to be seen.
Right. Now, without any dialogue, you could put 2 to 2 together. It's not that complicated.
No.
This ain't Midsummer.
Right. Well, and the fact that...
And I know I'm mispronouncing it. I don't care.
Midsummer?
Midsummer. Yeah, I just don't feel like saying it like that.
That's fine.
So
you do what you want.
I'm going to do what I want.
I do what I want. But even if that isn't enough, if you just listen to the dialogue back and forth, Blood tells Vic that she did not have a good sense of what was it? I forget what it was, sensibility or something like that.
Hang on. Let's just get the. I'm right. I have the IMDb page open, so I didn't think I need it, but I can bring up the actual quote. Hang on.
Okay, because what he says in that quote is pretty much hammers it home that he has eaten her.
Well, I'd certainly say she had marvelous judgment, Albert, if not particularly good taste.
Exactly. And then in the film, they just start laughing uncontrollably back and forth, and then
they chuckle. Let's be fair.
no,
This
no,
isn't
well,
a
no, well, okay, it's a little more than a chuckle, maybe uncontrollably.
I'll meet you halfway.
Okay, it's a little more than a chuckle, but they do have a good laugh about it, and then the film, credits roll.
They share in the merriment. All right, it's a dark ending.
It's very dark because he basically tells the Blood, he's like, it's not my fault that she decided to follow me.
And let's be honest, it's one of the main reasons the film is remembered.
Yes.
I'm not saying Don Johnson did a bad job, but he's not why it's remembered.
Yeah.
It's a novelty that he's in it, but he's not the reason. It's that line is that sells the movie, and it's a well-made film too. I'm not even trashing the film, but
Right.
Let's talk about that ending.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about Harlan Ellison.
Okay.
All right, Harlan Ellison was a very controversial character in that he pissed a lot of people off. You're familiar with the whole pro-Ellison, anti-Ellison.
I want to say yes, but for our audience, just remind them a little bit.
Well, he rubbed people the wrong way. He was very and let's be fair. I'm not an Ellison expert, but I have been involved in certain sci-fi and fantasy communities in my developing years, and I read a lot, so I'm familiar enough with him that what I'm saying is mostly accurate. Read a book and figure it out yourself. But he had a bit of an ego on him. He's like the opposite of Stephen King. Because Stephen King, just volumes and volumes of stuff. Then he comes out, it's like, I just make cheeseburgers. I'm not how about he comes out in his blue jeans. Ellison pretty much was convinced he was a genius. He's one of those guys.
Oh, okay.
And he wasn't afraid to tell you.
He believed his own hype.
He believed his own hype, and I'm not saying, and some of that was well deserved. I mean, he did accomplish a lot. But he's been controversial because he's come out on certain stances. He was anti-Vietnam, which was a big deal for some reason at some point, and he's criticized people, and he's opinionated, which I don't know what that's like.
No.
And so he's very adamant that when he has an opinion, it's right.
Got it.
And in the film world, which is kind of where I know him a bit too, he had a very, very strongly worded negative review about Blowout because of the misogyny at the end. And we're getting to that. And also he had a great review about Outland, that he just totally tears it apart because it doesn't make any sense from an actual science background.
Oh, really?
Scene by scene, he just destroys that film. He hated it because it's supposed to be a real science fiction, and nothing makes sense.
Oh, wow.
It's a treat. It doesn't ruin your enjoyment of the film either, but it's just totally. Anyway, he hates it. And that's the thing. Like when he complained about it, but you could tell when you read it, he's actually angry. And The Omen, he has this whole review where he's in the movie theater, and the scene where the plate of glass cuts off the guy's head. Spoiler.
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember that.
Like he has this review he talked about it where he stood up in the theater and was like, "This is an abomination." It's too violent.
It's just too.
So, and that kind of morality opinion of his too comes into play as well. He did not write the screenplay to A Boy and His Dog.
No.
From parts that I've read, and they might be leaning to defend him or believe his hype. He gave it to the director L.Q. Jones, saying with quote unquote writer's block. So he gave it to him. If you look at Ellison's history, he's written, and according to him, because he talks about it all the time, he's written many, many unfilmed screenplays.
Right. Okay.
Like I, Robot was one of them. Was a big one that he wrote and never got made.
But it did.
But by the name, it wasn't based on his screenplay.
Oh, okay. He was still alive when that.
Without his involvement. Yeah,
right.
It wasn't. But he would sue them to put his name in there. He did that with a lot of RoboCop. He sued them saying that they ripped off his short story. He pulled a Star Wars on them.
Oh, Lucas.
He pulled a Lucas out. my story had a robot cop. Your thing has a robot cop. You ripped me off. So like, and he just sued to have his name in the credits.
Wow.
You know, and I think Verhoeven has actually pretty much called him out, said it was just like a nuisance lawsuit, that kind of bullshit. And these are the reasons that he would piss people off. The whole thing. So with A Boy and the Dog, it comes out, and he didn't like come out full force. Like, he was quoted, and then later, like, they would walk back, and he didn't talk about it again. But he didn't like the ending.
Well, how does it end in the book or the novella?
His argument was that it was like schoolyardish, which my response is, it's sci-fi. What's your fucking audience?
Right.
And also he said it was misogynistic and cruel.
Okay.
All right.
How is it written in the novella then?
Here's what I want to point out.
Okay.
The things that are similar, 100% accurate, that with the novella and the movie, step in step. Vic likes to rape women.
Right.
Actively does so. Actively makes his dog find women to rape. Tries to rape a woman and then chases after her after he thinks he fell in love with her, but he was still going to rape her. When he's dragged down to the society, in the movie they hook him up to the milking machine. In the film, they were like, no, you're going to fuck all the girls. And he's like, all right, let's do it. The only reason he goes to escape is because he's bored. He's just bored.
Yeah.
In the book. He's just like sitting around. He's like, I couldn't take it anymore. I got to get out of there. So, all right.
Okay.
He's not really being held his will. He's being held against his will, just per se. But all he has to do is impregnate their women.
Right.
And he doesn't want to. He wants to escape because he's bored. His first person he's supposed to impregnate is Quilla. When they get together and decide they're going to leave, they escape first by he makes her get on the bed, and they allude in the book that her father has sexual interest in her, which is probably why they abandoned that for the Robards character.
Yeah.
In the book, he makes her call him, get on the bed, pull up her dress, and spread her legs, and then so the father comes in, sees her, and while he's staring at her, he shoots him in the back of his head, and he falls, and his head falls right between her legs.
Okay.
All right. Then they escape. She opens fire into the crowd too. She hates him. So let's understand. All of this is in Ellison's book. Okay. At the end, he does kill the woman, disassemble her body, roast her over a pit, and feed it to his dog.
In the book. Here's the difference. At the end of the book, I have it set up. I got the last line. Here's how it works. We started off across the blasted wasteland that morning. We'd find another city and make it. We had to move slow because blood was still limping. It took a long time before I stopped hearing her calling in my head, asking me, do you know what love is? She asked him this after he raped her or tried to. And he says, sure, I know. A boy loves his dog. Now, that's kind of touching, right? Sure.
It's still about a woman he just killed and fed to his dog. The only difference is that in the movie, they crack a joke about it.
That's right. They crack a joke about it.
Who gives a fuck? And this is where I don't agree. I feel neither way about Ellison. He's a writer. I don't give a shit about him as a real life. I never had to have dinner with him. But I understand why some people he irks because of shit like that.
Well, yeah.
He got up his moral high horse about it. And also, the other thing I think he really hated about the film is, one, he didn't write it. Two, it was popular. And three, I honestly don't think he liked the short story that much. But it gained a huge popularity. And I think it's like a Taxi Driver syndrome, where everybody fell in love with Travis Bickle. And Scorsese's like, that's not what I fucking wanted.
You're right.
It's the same thing. I don't.
It was like the opposite. Is like the opposite of Law-Abiding Citizen, where it's like, are you telling me I'm not supposed to be rooting for Gerard Butler?
Yeah.
Like, tell me I'm wrong, because I feel like I'm supposed to be rooting for this character.
So, like, I think in his mind when he wrote the short story, the tenderness of the whole ending is supposed to be satirical.
Right.
And you're making an argument for love, but this is love in the wasteland, and the whole boy and his dog thing. That's what he was going for, I think. So I don't think he actually wanted anybody to like the characters.
Right.
And then so he had fans asking for sequels, and he was like, no. He actually did write one sequel. I don't know if it was a comic book or an actual short story, because he did some graphic novel stuff too. But there's one sequel that he wrote about it where, like, this is him like apologizing for the movie. Vic spends the whole thing like agonizing over killing the girl, and at the end he commits suicide by a giant radioactive spider. Not exaggerating.
Wow.
And it's this weird moral high ground he's taking about a book, that short story that he wrote. I think part of the problem is he didn't like what happened. I don't think he wanted it to be read that way,
Right.
but you're the author. So I think that plays into it too. And let's talk about the ego. I mentioned The Boy and His Dog, right?
Right.
As far as I know, I could be wrong, the original title was Vic and Blood.
Oh, I actually like that title.
Right. They changed it, maybe because of the film. I'm not sure. I didn't look into history. I don't care. At one point it becomes A Boy and His Dog, because that's kind of the illusion in the story. The love between a boy and his dog.
Sure.
The name Arthur.
No, Albert.
Albert is a reference to an author. If I said his name now, you wouldn't know who the fuck I'm talking about. I've forgotten it since I read about it. He's an author from, I don't know if it was close to the same time period or earlier, like early 1900s maybe, who wrote books primarily about boys and their dogs. That's the joke. Oh, I can tell you, because he mentions the author in the short story. Sorry, novella. It's a short story. It's a long short story, but it's a short story. I can find it, because he mentions the name. And yeah, it's actually the first paragraph of the whole of the whole thing. I was out with Blood, my dog. It was his week for annoying me. He kept calling me Albert. He thought that was pretty damn funny. Payson Terhune. Ha ha. Albert Payson Terhune wrote a bunch of books about kids and their dogs and about the relationship. That's the joke.
Wow.
That's the joke that he explains in your short story, and you still don't get it. This is the ego on this guy. All right?
Okay.
He thinks that's a reasonable reference. I think they kept it in the movie just because it was so well known as the opening.
Right.
But I think that's why they tried not to explain it. 'Cause we can explain it, and no one's just still. So why even bother?
Yeah, I mean, I think Vic's character
it only raises more questions.
Oh, I know. I think Vic's character in the film, he just basically yells at him to stop calling him Albert.
Yeah, that's it. It's like Lost. The more answers you get, the more questions you have. You just can't go down that rabbit hole.
You just can't do it.
No. So I just find the whole thing, whenever you get artists like this that complain about their films, I don't know why I did that. I'm sorry. I'm pushing buttons.
That's okay.
Like Alan Moore, that cock breath.
Oh,
it's just bullshit about. I don't even know why I said cock breath. It just came out.
Wow. You know what? Let's revisit that for a second. You said cock breath.
Yeah, and I don't even know where it came from. I don't even know what that smells like.
I didn't think you did.
Oh no, wait. Anyway, yeah. Whenever these authors complain about the movies that are made of their books when they signed on to them and stuff, it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. There's always this kind of ego trip. I mean, I think Stephen King does it sometimes, but he's like, I'm a billionaire. What the fuck am I going to complain about?
Right.
So I think the closest he ever got to complaining is when he said, fuck all this, I'm going to make my own film. And he made Sleepwalkers, and everyone was like, all right, now shut up, Steve.
Yes, Steve.
Yeah.
That was on very recently in the last couple of months, and I was watching it. I'm like, this. I was watching it with Mare, and I leaned over to her. I go, Stephen King wrote this film, right? And she's like, he did? I go, yeah, they were kind of on his ass about writing something, like straight to the screen. Mm-mm. And
he was on their ass. It was after Lawnmower Man came out. He was like, they're buying my stories, using my name and my title, and then they're just doing shit. And which he's not wrong.
No.
I mean, Lawnmower Man was not as bad as Sleepwalkers. It was a bad movie.
Yes, it was.
And he was like, I can do this on my own. And he did. And
Lawnmower Man, when that came out, that was basically just a CGI fest. It was that kind of CGI was like very,
90s CGI fest.
very, very new to cinema. There was a laser disc and a DVD that had come out called The Mind's Eye and Beyond the Mind's Eye.
Yeah, I had the first one, yeah.
And they were using scenes from Lawnmower Man in those DVDs and laser discs because of how, at the time, revolutionary and advanced the CGI, the graphics were.
No looking. What year was Lawnmower Man?
94.
Oh, you hurt me.
93?
92.
92? Okay.
92. Yeah. We're talking early 90s CGI.
Yeah,
Anybody who's played early 90s video games, it's worse than that.
Yes. And as a matter, you're right. You know what? I should have known 92 because it came out a year after Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which with the T-1000, with all the liquid metal and all that stuff, the T-1000, that at the time was considered a big deal because it was the first time that they were really truly using special effects graphics in movies that way.
And I kind of agree with Stephen King that it was a shit film, but then again, he had to have known something was up.
Well, yeah.
The short story Lawnmower Man.
They had to get the rights to it.
The short story Lawnmower Man is the guy hires someone to mow his lawn, a big ugly guy,
right.
And the guy who mows the lawn kills him and like spreads his viscera all over the yard. That's the short story. He sold that. They said, we want to make a movie, and he said, okay, I'll sell it to you. He didn't have follow-up questions. He's a writer.
And
he didn't think, how are they going to turn this into a movie? He takes blame for that.
Isn't Lawnmower Man like the short story? Isn't it like 50 pages or less?
No, 50. It's like 10.
It's really short, like really short.
I just explained the whole thing. How long could it be?
I know it had to be like it was. I think I was like, I guess 50, but I knew it wasn't more than that.
You know what it is? It's literally the best translation for that would be a Robot Chicken short.
Yeah,
that's what it is. It's a 5-7 page Robot Chicken short.
There you go.
That's it. And he sold that. He's like, oh yeah, we're gonna use a lot of CGI and it's gonna be great. He didn't ask what? No.
And and you know what? For such a short story, let's say it was 10 to 15 pages long, it's like a 2 hour and 20-minute movie.
Right. That didn't clue him off. Come on.
It's a long ass film.
I'm just saying. So, and that's my thing with, and so that's also my thing with Ellison, to go full circle. Excuse me, is that it's like these guys, they sell them, and they're like, here's my thing with Ellison. This if there's an Ellison fan listening, this will piss you off, and I'm not trying to. If you look at his history of teleplay writing and all that, he wrote tons of stuff for TV. All right, he doesn't. A Boy and His Dog is like his only screenplay film, if he had written it, that was made.
Right.
He doesn't have many films. As far as the writing credits, it's all like based on stuff, or it's TV stuff. I think he wasn't up to the task of writing a feature-length screenplay at that time, or he couldn't figure out how to do it. A short story he didn't originally like. I think, again, this is already after fans are coming out, and like that's why they're making a movie. And for my idea is like he didn't really like the short story to begin with. He didn't like what it become. He didn't like what fans liked about it. He just didn't want to do it. So he gave it to somebody else and trusted them. And then he's upset. No, dude, you wrote the rape story. Don't get pissed off because somebody else put a different punchline on your rape story. It's still a rape story.
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly.
It's a good rape story. It's no Twilight, but it's a good rape story.
Wow.
Yeah, I said that.
You did say it. Yeah, no, it's
I got some feeling behind this.
It's interesting that you do mention about how he probably wasn't up to task to write a screenplay.
And would never admit it. That's why it was like, oh, I'd
Well,
writer's
the
block.
thing is, it's like there are specific ways to write screenplays. I mean, you have to be able to denote when you're writing. It's like, this is a daytime scene. This is an exterior daytime scene. This is the dialogue between these characters. And then you have to transition your screenplay into, okay, this is now a nighttime scene. And then it moves to outside nighttime, or moves into like whatever. It's like you have to be able to tell this story in a screenplay. And he's just used to, writing the way he normally is accustomed to writing. And he probably just thought it was
writing
more,
for television.
It was too much work.
Yeah, and again, I think it was 50%. He's more accomplished in writing for television, so maybe he had a point where he didn't. And I think it's part not being able to translate it properly himself, and half of it not wanting to translate it himself, because in order to do so, he'd have to write out all the stuff he regretted writing.
Yeah, you're probably right with that.
So,
for sure.
but instead of just saying that, you get this whole, I had writer's block. Oh, your ending is crude. Really? That's what Bob. As I was watching this film, I had remembered that. As I'm watching all this, I was like, "You got to be fucked." And after having read the short story, because really, that's what you really took offense to that.
Yeah.
But I was surprised. I liked the film a lot more than I thought I was, based on my memory from it back in the. I probably saw it in the late '80s.
Yeah, I said,
on like third, fourth generation VHS tape.
I've never seen it before. And I have to admit, I actually enjoyed this film quite a bit. I'm going to keep it. I'm not going to get rid of it. It's going to stay in my collection.
I wish I had written it down, but he had Don Johnson had some good insults or explosions of profanity.
Right.
Some of them from the short story. I think some of them were new. Most of them were from the short story, but there's some great dialogue here in this film too.
There is, especially
between the boy and the dog.
Yeah. Well, there's a scene where he's talking about the girl Quilla, and what did he say to Blood? He basically, Blood says to him something along the lines of, and you've had her this many times and all that, and he just quips real quick. He's like, yeah, and I'm gonna have her a few more. Or something like that, or something along those lines. He goes, "Yeah, again, I'm going to have her a few more times."
Again, I liked his response to when they said, "You're going to help us, impregnate our." He's like, "You want me to knock up your broads? All right, let's go. You first. Get in line." I mean, Don Johnson pulled them off great. Here's one line from the film. I just stumbled upon one that I'm pretty sure in the book it's more profanity laden. It's when he's trying to get the guy to move his gun. And again, that's in the book. They're very faithful to the original. Most of the stuff, everything they could translate that made sense, they did. And I think that most of the changes were in the underground stuff, and it's reasonable why. But when he tells the guy to move his gun so it's not under the water, I'm not going to look up the quote in the book, but in the movie it was, "If my gun picks up one rust spot, you're going to wake up with a crowd around you."
That's great.
It reminded me of some of the ones I'm finding in my Dragnet montage I'm doing now.
Nice.
It just great stuff like that. I love it. But yeah, Ellison gets under my skin, but in a good and bad way. Which I think it's healthy. I'm not a friend of Ellis. I'm not an enemy of Ellis. I'm just Ellison.
So, Are we at the point where we rate this thing?
Yeah, I was all set until you started, going on tangents. Right now it's at. Oh, so you go ahead.
It's currently at 6.5 on IMDb, and I think it's actually too good a film to give it a 6. I think I would go a 7 on this.
So the demographics on this, before we rate it, I was just glancing. We don't do it anymore, but 18 and under, there's a total number of how many votes? 16,618 votes.
Right.
Number of them under 18.
How many? Two. Wow. 2 under
18. The biggest demographic seems to be ages 30 to 44. Hello. Well, we're a bit over, but yeah, we're we're firmly in the 45 and over category now, sir.
Not me, not yet. Not till June.
Right. Yeah, hold out.
I'm holding out for as long as I can. I'm
turning 27 again.
Is 3 months.
Yeah.
3 months, I'll be 45.
Yeah, I'm not talking down the numbers carrying this around.
No, I didn't think so.
But I'm sorry, yeah, but 6.5. Honestly, you go ahead. What do you think?
I think a 7.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I think 6 would kind of make it just a little bit above average, and I think it's better than that.
I hate to be shallow. I think the one thing that would take it into an eight territory would have been a budget,
Yeah.
and that's not being mean. That's just
No,
it
yeah.
does a lot for the budget it had.
It
but
does. And for a film filmed in 1975, it's made very well. It's acted very well. The dog talking is actually not stupid. It translates to film properly, I think. I think this is a solid 7.
I honestly think if they did do a modern day remake, they would give it a decently large budget. They wouldn't hit 100 million. It'd be like 50.
It might
maybe,
not,
depending on.
it might not even be that much. They might not need
Right.
it with today's technology. But yes, they will give it a real budget.
No, but what I'm saying is they do 40 or 50, maybe a little more, depending if it's Tom Cruise or not. And
Okay.
but sorry, but and you wouldn't have to throw CGI at this. All it would mean was just better set design, bigger sets. That's all it would be.
Yeah. No.
And that's and
No
I
CGI required for this at all.
And if you remake it, keep this a fucking ending. Fuck Ellison's half-ass ending.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I rated 7. Oh, you want to hear the ultimate thing that really annoys me about this whole thing? I gotta in the cop version of A Boy and a Dog that I have, at the end of it, after the short story, he has when they give the history of blood, he explains how there were 2 other breeds that were there was 4 other breeds that were mainly used in the military's mind psi experiment with dogs to give them the ability to talk with humans.
Right.
And his mother and father were 2 of those breeds, and he was the offspring. And one of them was called Abu, Abhu. So it turns out that Ellison put that in the story because that was the name of his dog. And there's like a 5-6 page thing at the end where he talks about when his dog Abu died and how emotional it was. Now, I'm not a macho alpha bullshit person. I cry at coffee commercials. I get it, but this is very like self-obsessed. This is like a Facebook post someone would do, or
when they're looking for attention. Sure.
Yeah, it's like, dude, yeah, I had a pet that died too. Move on. It's well written, it's nice and everything, and just about how he loved that dog. And I just keep thinking, all right, so you got the rapist story that ends with killing the woman,
right,
and killing her and murdering her and cooking her and eating her, possibly at least feeding her to your dog. And after that, he's like, but let's get all serious now. I love my dog. It's like, all right, I get that. But this is right after you killed the woman, and you're going to launch into the whole sob story about you. It just seems it's too soon for me. That's all I'm saying.
Too soon.
That's all I'm saying.
Too soon. I get it.
Yeah. All right. So I rated it 7. I agree with you.
Perfect.
I think it's I enjoyed it much more than I thought I would. I think this is really. I could say this film deserves the cult following it has.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the fact that Ellison in some way probably didn't like the fact it had a cult following makes me enjoy it that much more.
All right.
It used.
So,
now,
do you have a challenge for me?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Now, I'm challenging you to a film that I'm going to be just as verbal about, just as loquacious about,
Okay.
and just as passionate about.
So let me ask you this then.
Yes.
Are we moving to 1976 or are we staying in 1975?
We are staying in 1975. I think there are a few genres that we haven't touched on yet
Okay.
that I think are important for this decade and for this year. This is a film obviously we never reviewed,
Okay.
but this is a film that I have mentioned before. And this is a film that I will be speaking passionately about because I have a very, very, very opinionated view of the artist behind it.
Whew. Should I even try and guess this? Can I have a hint?
Can you have a hint? All right. We're going to horror.
Is this an Argento film?
Wow.
Is it Suspiria?
No.
No.
Different year.
Wait. Opera? No. What came out in 75?
Profondo Rosso. Deep Red.
Ah, Deep Red.
This is a film I've mentioned in the past as being the closest Argento ever got to writing a real screenplay.
Okay.
Now, so Joey,
Yes.
there are a minimum of 2 different versions of this film.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay, I have 2 versions. I have I'm not sure if you can call it the theatrical cut, but it's the foreign cut. This is the cut like America got and all this stuff.
Okay.
All right, it's the main cut. The other cut is the director's cut.
And we're reviewing.
I'm going to talk about both regardless.
Okay.
So it's your call. I can promise you. I feel like you should watch the director's cut.
Okay. I'm going to try and watch both, because if you're going to talk about both, I'm going to do my best to try and watch both.
Right. If you watch my copies, here's what I did. And it was just totally accidental, but here's the great thing about it.
Okay.
I got 2 very good copies. I watched the shorter version first.
Okay.
All right. I wanted to see what, as is. That one's about, I think it's an hour and 40.
Okay.
And after that, and I watched it dubbed. Whatever.
Oh.
I didn't even think to look for subtitles. I was more focused on the visuals, really. So I didn't care about the language. The director's cut that I have.
2 different run times on this.
Right. The director's cut is around 2 hours.
It's 2 hours and 7 minutes.
Right. The one copy I have has the dubbing, but not for the deleted scenes from the other version.
Oh, geez. Okay.
So the reason I'm saying this is because when you're watching for I'd say 95% of the cuts, when you're watching and something is taken out that is in there, because they're speaking Italian all of a sudden.
Okay.
So it kind of, again, not all the scenes have dialogue, but the majority of them do.
Right.
So it really kind of hammers home sometimes that, this is the part I'm not supposed to be watching now.
Got it. Okay.
I watched both one after the other. I would recommend it because I know you're as psychotic as I am about these things.
Yes, definitely.
I've already watched both of them. I already have notes. I've got.
Yeah, I think you even told me you have a slideshow ready to go.
I found it like that weekend after we recorded. It's like, I just gotta start watching this now. And I got the slides. I watched both versions. I was doing my research. I dug down my old books off the shelf that have the Argento summaries and their own little twisted criticisms.
Oh my God.
I'm psyched about this. It was very interesting watching both versions.
So I'm just gonna prepare our audience for me not talking much that episode. Listen, if you are this well prepared, there is no way I'm going to be.
I'm not going to hog the show, though.
It's fine.
You make me sound like a greedy egomaniac.
No. I'm just saying, if you're this well prepared for it, I'm going to let you go, let you run. That's what I'm basically saying.
And let me preface this by saying, if you like Argento, you'll agree with a lot I say, and if you don't like Argento, you're going to agree with a lot I say.
Okay.
I think both points of view are very valid with this kind of art. But it's it was fun. And I'm looking forward to talking to you about it. I really am.
All right. Well,
You've never seen it, right?
I've never seen it.
Yeah, because I rewatched it. I'd watched it again.
It's
80s, third generation.
One of the
copy.
few Argento films that I've never gotten around to watching.
It's oddly enough, it's like if you do a YouTube search for people reviewing the original Suspiria,
right. Which, by the way, I tried to watch the remake last weekend, and here's the thing. Before we end the show, and we exit out, so I had the house to myself. Mare was doing a sleepover at her girlfriend's house, and what? It's
3 hours long.
2.5. 2.5.
It's 3 hours long.
But anyway, that's not where I'm going with it, actually. So I was like, you know what? I have time. I'm going to watch this movie. It's probably around 8:30, 9 o'clock. I start watching the film. I turn it off 15 minutes later. not because I wasn't enjoying it, but because I knew that I wasn't going to give it the attention that it deserved. Because I'm like, you know what? I am not in the right mindset for this. I was like, I need something a little bit more, a little less involved.
I've got films I'm like years behind, and whenever I get around to it, I'm like, you know what? This is not the right time for this film.
And that's how I was. I tried watching it. I was like, you know what? This is not the time or the place. I'm not invested. And I know that when I saw the camera work that was happening in the film, like the one shot where she walks in and then the camera pans all the way back, like it felt like it went back like 30 feet. I was like, you know what? He's going for something here. Because then when they follow her, like she starts walking and then they zoom in on certain photos, and I'm like, you know what? I can't. I'm just not in the right mindset, and he's doing this for a reason, and I am not going to give it the attention it deserves. I'm going to do it a different time.
It's very, very cliche, but it's one of those jaw-dropping films where my jaw literally dropped during scenes. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Not even, just.
Yeah.
It sounds stupid, but it happens. It's a natural instinct.
And I felt that while I was starting to watch it. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this a different time.
Deep Red is similar, except instead of going, you'd be like, the fuck is that? Okay. And it's usually intentional, but sometimes even when it is intentional, it still doesn't work. I don't want to get into myself. But I've already got slides for you for that. If I have the time, I want to do an opening to Moviesucktastic just with clips from Deep Red.
Oh, really?
I'm not sure if I can do it, but I've been mulling it over. And
I'll send you. I got to send you the theme music anyway because you're working on an opening for us already.
By next episode, we will have a new, better-looking opening, no matter what, whether it's the Deep Red one or just the new one I'm working on. Awesome. That's to be decided.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll make sure and send you the. I'm hoping that I am not busy tomorrow at all because I have all of the. Or most of the podcast edited into MP3 and ready to be uploaded on the iTunes. Nice. So I know I'm really far behind, and I'm hoping I'm not very busy tomorrow, and I'm gonna do that first thing in the morning.
We're alive.
Yeah, that's true.
I have water and electricity. It's a beautiful world.
That is, yes, it is. All right, let's go ahead and end the show here. Let me cue up our exiting music. That should still work, I hope. So many sound problems. Oh my God. I had to reinstall my operating system. It's just... and then I'm also on the fence about buying real equipment. It's like, I don't know. This kind of works just fine. Whatever.
If my annual bonus is big enough, I'll get a green screen. Not that I need one.
I don't think you need it. I mean, that does the same thing.
I'll get like a nice looking background or something.
Okay. All right. You can go to our website at moviesucktastic.com. Yes, I know it's fucking broken, but if you go into your browser and you
Joey's gonna fix it tomorrow.
Tomorrow it's happening. If you just allow Flash, the website works perfectly fine. But I am going to be redesigning it, and I promise it will be this year. Giving myself 9 months. You can go to Facebook at facebook.com/moviesucktastic, and you can go visit all our show stuff there as well. You can go to iTunes, and you can download and listen to the show there. You can literally just do a search for Moviesucktastic, and you can listen to the show about 20 or 30 different ways. You can go to our YouTube page, and you can watch this live stream, which I thought was fixed, but apparently is not. I mean, I set up the software that I use for this and clicked stream, went to the page, and it was streaming. So I don't understand what's not working. What the actual fuck?
Unless I'm looking in the wrong spot.
No, you're not, because I went to the page and the live stream section didn't have even like the preview. So, and I have it set up, like I have all the parameters set up so that all I have to do is fill in the title of the film we're reviewing and like the search feature. I have a whole thing written up, like ready to. I don't understand why it's not working. I really don't. But I have the videos. They will just get uploaded manually. Anyway, you can leave us voicemail at 908-514-4478. I can't believe I even remember that number. You can do that. You can leave us email. The address is themovieguys@moviesucktastic.com. Whatever. Suggest a bad film for us to review, and we'll probably do it.
Oh, yeah.
All right, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. This
Hang
is
on.
episode
I have words of wisdom.
330. Scott, Mr. Wilson, do you have any words of wisdom?
Yes. If you're going to rape, bring a dog.
Always. Never. Always. Sure. I don't even know why I'm agreeing to that. That's ridiculous. Why would I bring my dog?
I don't know. I'm not a rapist. I don't know how these things work.
Well, that's good to know. All right, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Happy trails to you. Gonna feed you to my dog.